include them and engage them, and don't sweep things under the carpet. Whatever good they do, validate them, because their biggest crisis is in their identity. Alright, you're welcome back once again. We are here to share with you mental health tips that you may not be hearing from your psychologist or psychiatrist or mental health professional. So we want to share them in simple language and simple terms so that we can all appreciate. Today in this episode, we are talking about how to parent a child living with BPD. So I'm sure when I said parent, a lot of people may be thinking about maybe a 5-year-old child or a 6-year-old. No, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about anybody who is a child or a dependent or some form of someone you need to give some form of care to. So child may not be the right term, but basically someone you need to care for. So if you know somebody who depends on you one way or another, it could be a junior colleague at work, or it could be actually a child, maybe somebody you birth, or it could be a younger sibling you are a bit responsible for. Whatever the category, once you have to care for someone like that, there are a few things you should not do, and there are a few things you should try and do. So today, the focus is on parenting a child with BPD. Now, mind you, I have clients who are in their 30s, in their 40s, and still have to relate with their parents. And sometimes it's still a bit chaotic because the parents have not been able to nurture their children the way they should, particularly because of their condition. So today, we are talking about how to parent a child living with BPD, and I pray we can generalize this to all other forms of care or caregiver relationship. So today, the first thing I'll talk about is when you are caring for someone living with BPD, or if you're parenting a child living with BPD, do not compare that child with any other person. So avoid comparison outrightly. Now, people living with BPD have struggled with their identity. Sometimes they're not sure who they are. Sometimes they're not sure who they are in the light of the world in which they live. So it's important that we don't complicate that by comparing them with other people. And again, people living with BPD sometimes, no matter how wonderful they may still struggle with some form of self-esteem issues, low self-esteem. By comparing them with others, you are likely to harm their self-esteem. So regardless of what they do or whoever they are relating with, make sure you do not compare them with that other person. So you can keep them stable and calm all the time. The other one is that make every effort not to exempt them from discussions, conversations. I mean, sometimes we say something like, oh, as for this person, when you bring him into the conversation, he's going to make it worse, he's going to blow it out, he's going to be all emotional about it and all of that. And so we eventually end up alienating them from certain pertinent information or conversations or even some interactions. No, don't do that, because when you exempt a person living with BPD from an important conversation or something that they know they are supposed to be involved in, what you are trying to tell them indirectly is that they don't matter, they are not worthy, as it were. And that's a big thing, because that's exactly what they are struggling with. They are struggling with their sense of worth. So exempting them without properly explaining why you have to do that, if you ever have to, will really harm them. So don't exempt them from critical conversations, don't exempt them from family meetings, don't exempt them from social gatherings and whatever they need to be part of just because you have your own reservations or fears or anxieties about how they may take one thing or another. No, include them and engage them. Include them and engage them. That's the best way to foster their emotional regulation and their sense of self. Now, the third one is that once you're dealing with someone living with BPD, don't disregard the person. So if I say disregard, what I mean is that sometimes the person may say something and then you just look away, you don't say anything, or sometimes you just shut the person up. Oh, please don't bring those things here, or I don't want to hear that. Those kinds of comments will really break anybody living with BPD. So don't disregard them. The least you could do is say something like, oh, okay, I've heard you, I think I understand where you're coming from, but can we find a better time to talk about this, maybe in the next 2-3 hours, or when I'm done sorting this out? That may seem more reasonable, and that may detach your reactions from their sense of self. So make every effort to recognize that whatever they are saying, you have heard it, and then you would give some action to it. So don't disregard them. Never disregard a person living with BPD. Then the next one is that don't shout. That's a no-no. Don't shout at a person living with BPD. And shouting could be in different ways. Okay, so sometimes we shout with our voices, and then other times we shout with our behavior. So for some people, we shout, like we rage at them, stop that, don't do that, that kind of thing. When you do that with a person living with BPD, you are likely to get the person, or to make the person experience a very bad episode. Okay, so don't shout at a person living with BPD. One of the advantages in not shouting is that once you're able to keep your calm, even when the person has done something you are not so pleased with, they learn what we call co-regulation. They're able to learn from the way you are regulating your emotions. That's what we call co-regulation. So they learn your calmness, and then they are able to also find some form of sobriety, within that period of time. So don't shout at a person living with BPD. The best you can do is to keep calm or be quiet, and then just assure them of what you do about how they are feeling. That's all, and you can leave it at that. And some people also shout differently. So the other type of shout is when you bang a door or you walk away. They are non-verbal communications, and that sounds like shouting. Or that feels like shouting. So don't walk away, don't bang the door, don't punch the table, and all those kinds of things. So make every effort to be calm. If you're living with a person with BPD, if you're parenting a child with BPD, your best bet is to be calm. And once you are calm, they're able to learn to calm down with respect to their emotions, and then they are able to engage properly. So don't shout, and don't do anything non-verbally that suggests that you are shouting. And then the next one is that don't enable a person living with BPD. What I mean by enabling the person is that sometimes, because people living with BPD may have certain strengths, sometimes we leverage on their strength. So you tell them, if he hits you, hit her back. If he shouts on you, shout on her. Don't enable those kinds of things. Don't allow them to fight your battle. So sometimes that this person living with BPD is very, very good. They can articulate, they can talk, and then you share some information with them and sort of push them to fight your battles for you. Don't do that. You are enabling their tendency to dysregulate emotionally, and you are also enabling their impulsivity. So don't do that. At best, what you can do is to discuss the situation with them and sit with them and find the best way to handle the situation, so they can also learn how to sit with their emotions and handle situations a bit more adaptively. And then finally, don't rebuke them publicly. Don't correct them publicly. No, that's a no-no. So for example, you go to a shopping mall, wherever, it could be anywhere, or in a family gathering, and then your child living with BPD, or somebody dear to you living with BPD, begins to act in a way, becomes a bit emotional about a situation, and reacts in a way that you don't find cool. The best thing to do is to assure the person that you understand. So just keep saying, hey, I'm sorry you feel this way, and let's calm down, everything will be okay. And if you can, hold the person or hold the hand of the person, walk the person away, and just be with the person so the person can calm down, you are good. At least you win the person. But don't correct the person publicly. Don't say, hey, why are you talking to that person like that? Do you know who he is? Once you do that, you are likely to get a full-blown episode, and that could harm the person living with BPD and yourself sometimes. So try not to correct the person publicly. Be calm about it. Validate how they are feeling. Let them know that you understand and you appreciate that they are uncomfortable about something, without necessarily prescribing what they should do. Just say that, oh, I recognize that you're uncomfortable about this situation, so we'll figure it out, and then let it lie until they can come around at a good time. So if you're parenting a person living with BPD, don't do these things. If there's anything you need to do, the first one is that make every effort to validate the person living with BPD. They sweep your room, say thank you, and then when the day ends, call them back and say, hey, today you did great, thank you for sweeping my room, thank you for doing this for me. Validate them, and don't sweep things under the carpet. Whatever good they do, validate them, because their biggest crisis is in their identity, and by validating them, you help them consolidate right identity. So validate them. And then the other one is that be predictable. If you have a child living with BPD, be predictable. Don't leave them to think about so many things at one point in time. That could swing them straight into a depressive state. So if I say be predictable, what I mean is that tell them why you cannot do something. Be explicit. Okay, so I'm sorry I'm running late from work today, so I won't be able to pick you at the regular time that I pick you. Is that okay? I'm sure I'll likely get there in 2 hours. So what will you be doing within that 2-hour period? They share with you what they are likely to do, and they are good. But if you leave them sitting for 2 hours and they don't know where you are, they haven't heard anything, then they are likely to spiral. So make every effort to be predictable. Share relevant information with them. Make sure it is timely, and make sure they are understood, and hear from them their interpretation, the meaning that they've made out of what you've shared with them, and you guys are likely to be good. And then finally, always make sure you create an ambience of peace. If you live with a person living with BPD, or you work with someone like that, dating someone like that, make sure it's an ambience filled with peace. So make every effort not to create chaos, like tension, like I won't talk to you, I don't want to talk to you, leave me alone. Once you do that, they are going to get into an episode. So always be explicit again about the ambience. So I don't feel too fine today, I have a bit of an abdominal upset, so I'll be quiet for a while. Then they know why you are quiet, so they don't have to think about it, because once you leave them to their thoughts, they are likely to experience very, very difficult emotions that they cannot handle. So I hope this helps every parent who may be caring for a child living with BPD, or any parent who has an adult child who is living with BPD, or a sweetheart of yours who is living with BPD. These are things not to do and to do, and I hope this is useful, particularly to teachers who know a student or a pupil who may be living with BPD. I pray this helps you. Thank you very much, and this is still Unfiltered Psyche, and I hope this helps. Thank you.